Good morning, Missouri Valley, and congratulations to all the new graduates. I apologize, I didn't realize that yesterday was graduation. I probably should have known that. I did not, and so I had scheduled the meeting, Q2 Missouri Valley Voices meeting for yesterday at the library. I did send out a Google link for people who wanted to join live, and I did record, but somewhere along the line at the 12-minute mark, I don't know if I pushed a button or did something, it stopped recording. And so what I want to do today is just go over the topics from the agenda and just fill the community in on what we talked about and the progress that's been made on certain points. What I am going to do is, you can see the agenda up on the screen. I'm going to do just shorter clips. So I'm going to do multiple clips. This one will be about the water, and I'll label them when I post them because maybe one of these topics matters to you and maybe you don't care about the others. So I want to make it easy for you to go and look at the ones that you care about. So this is going to be specifically about Missouri Valley's water. So what I've got the agenda up here, so it's going to be an overview of the local water system and current concerns. Something that we know is an issue is the brown water. So I did call the DNR on this to understand what exactly is happening. People put a lot of posts out on Facebook to say, hey, I'm up here on this street, look at my water, and some of it's pretty gnarly. So when I talked to the DNR, what they explained to me is we have levels of manganese and iron in our water, and when they oxidize, it turns our water brown. So, obviously our water's not always that color, so what's actually causing it to turn that color at times? And what was shared was that we've got old pipes, they're cast iron, there's flushing that gets done. The city does share with us sometimes now that, hey, we're going to flush, and so you could potentially see your water turning brown. So it's that manganese and iron that's oxidizing in addition to the flushing. I still would not drink that. I was told that it's safe. I don't think it's safe. I don't think that's even appetizing. I wouldn't use that brown water. But I know that we are limited, right? Like if that's what you have and you need to use it, that's what you have. The thing about the manganese is, I was told that that's also not harmful, but when I did some research, the manganese, it can be harmful, but we don't actually test for it, and we're not required to test for it. So that's a whole separate issue. So a situation that took place in April of this quarter was the Willow Creek sewage leak that the DNR was involved with People Services. Our city administrator, Turi, was not aware that the DNR was involved, and they only became aware of a valve leak after People Services informed them. That makes sense, but they were not informed that the DNR was involved. That is something I would like to see the city get more proactive about. We do pay People Services approximately $20,000 per month. I think that the communication between People Services and the city needs to be better, and we do need to be proactive about understanding and communicating to the public what's going on. When I was speaking with the DNR about the quality of our water, they were explaining to me that we really just have a bad quality of water because of our location in the aquifer. And so when I asked about potentially just digging deeper to get better water, he said you can't do that because we actually have water that is radioactive. So, and that's just naturally. That's not because any contaminants or anything happened. It's the nature of our water underneath that aquifer. We can't dig deeper because it's radioactive water. So we're kind of picking bad quality water, because what's worse than that would be drinking radioactive water. So our water source is not great. It's shallow, and so we have potential contaminants for just our health and runoff and things like that. So that brings me to my next point, which has to do with the DNR. And they have what's called Phase 1 and Phase 2. And one of the things that I wanted to see was the city engage in Phase 2. So they completed phase 1 with the DNR, which is essentially just to identify basics about our water. So where's our water located? What aquifers do we use? What are the potential concerns, risks? They've got images of our water supply. So here is, and I've shown this before, so this probably looks familiar, but this is the phase 1 report. This report, I'll share a link to, so anybody who wants to come out and actually look at these documents closely can, but it shows the source or entry point for our water. So we have our physical wells 1, 4, and 5. When I was talking to the DNR and I was doing some research, what I found is they actually have a phase 2. I thought this is really great. Phase 2 involves a completely free, it's a partnership between the city and the DNR. And the idea is to say, going forward, how do we proactively provide safe water, or even safer water than what we are now? How do we address these issues to make sure that going forward there are better, there's a better plan in place? So I did reach out to the DNR to just confirm, have we as a city completed phase 2? And the DNR forwarded this to Matthew Dvorak, who is the person who's in charge of this program. And this is, the phase 2 is called the Water Protection Plan. And he shared with me that Missouri Valley has not, in the emails right here, that Missouri Valley has not completed phase 2, and he's not aware of any current efforts by the city to complete the plan. Is called an SWPP. Now, the city is not required to do this, but what I would really love to see is the city move, and the county move away from what am I legally required to do. I think that thought needs to just throw it out the window. And the thoughts need to change to, what can we do proactively to benefit the community and to make sure that the future of our water, the future of our citizens is protected. And when we have services that are available to us for free, I firmly believe that we need to be taking advantage of that. So I just want to share, this is what the DNR said: SWPPs are voluntary and communities are not required to complete one. They are made aware of these through the sanitary survey, which was what was done in 2020. The DNR field office will recommend communities develop and implement an SWPP if one's not been developed for the system, which it was noted that one was not in 2023. So this is what the DNR will do. So they'll assist communities in the development of that safe water plan at no cost. And again, they're not required to develop this plan, but they can develop it with or without the Iowa DNR's assistance. They can, so if the city decided that they wanted to create their own plan, they can certainly do that, and then they can submit it to the DNR to have it approved by the state. It's highly recommended that somebody from the community is involved, who's familiar with the processes and provides technical assistance during the development process. The Iowa Rural Water Association also has staff that's dedicated to helping small communities develop an SWPP at no cost. And there are also environmental consulting firms that will develop a plan for a fee. So we really have a couple routes here. Now, when I reached out to them, I did volunteer to work with them. I was told that I could not, because I'm a private citizen, and that does make sense to me, because they have to have buy-in from city leadership. They have to have somebody who actually has access to the water plant that can make decisions, because otherwise I have no authority to make any commitment on the city's behalf. So they said, nope, you've got to hey, thanks for reaching out, this is great, but you have to get the city involved so they can actually push through these plans, and we can work with them. So they also have a guide that they provided. It's a pretty good guide, and there's a link out here you guys can click on if you want to look at that guide, but it's a source water protection guidebook, and it has steps on what can be done to actually develop this plan. So they said if a representative of the city would like to further discuss plan development, I would be happy to meet with them. They can reach out to me, and then he provided their communication. He also said if the city would rather work with the Iowa Rural Water Association, I would encourage them to reach out to that source water specialist, Aaron Schroeder. Hope this helps. So they've given us a few options here, and I think that we as a city should jump on this opportunity. But of course, we're not required to, right? So what I did was I created an agenda item that I submitted to the city administrator. So this is my agenda item. And it has to do with the source water protection plan, like we just talked about through the DNR, and then TCE monitoring. I know those are two separate things. When I talk about TCE monitoring, I'm specifically talking about what is being monitored here in Missouri Valley. So I know that there's a whole big other separate issue that's impacting just a huge group of other folks. But what my main concern when I'm communicating with the city is people who live in town and who are reliant upon the municipal city water source that we're paying for. So I shared this with Turi, and I said that this item is to provide an update on Missouri Valley's drinking water protection efforts, including TCE monitoring. And I provided some background about what the TCE is and the long-term exposure risks from the chronic exposure. I do want to clarify that I've talked about this, that the level 5 MCL is that EPA standard that they've considered as safe, right? But it's not safe. They're accepting a risk with that level of water. It is not the same as the risk to humans, which is 0.44. So that's a far cry from the 5. 0.44 levels of TCE, parts per billion, being continuously exposed to a human is very bad for you. It can cause, and I've brought this up before, it's transdermal. So it's bathing in it, it's steam, it's breathing it in, it's drinking it. It can cause severe issues. Parkinson's, neurological issues, kidney issues, heart disease, particularly with fetuses who are growing. There's just a lot of really terrible things. And there was a meeting a couple nights ago. The Army Corps came into town, and it was the first time that I have heard anybody say out loud that level 5, we're not waiting for anything to get to a level 5. The Army Corps project manager clarified that any amount of identified TCE, and they're specifically talking about cottonwood, but any amount of identified TCE is going to get these carbon filters. They aren't waiting for it to get to a level 5. They're testing the water, and if there's TCE being identified at all in that water, they're saying, oh, this needs this carbon filter. So again, we're talking about this approach of what is legally required. It's under the 5 is what we're legally required to test. But what should we be testing, and what's going to impact you? What's going to potentially harm you? And how do we fix that or address it so that the community is knowledgeable and understands? So if the city tests this water and they determine that we do have TCE in the water, maybe you and I make different decisions. Maybe we start putting some money aside to try to buy a filtration system for our water supply that's coming in. Or maybe there are grants that the city can try to go after, that there can be a reverse osmosis system installed at that pump site. But if we're not testing for it simply because we don't want to know, that becomes a problem. So my request to the city is, hey, let's actually start testing. So my request, council may wish to consider requesting laboratory results to be reported as present, not present, in addition to detection thresholds for TCE testing. I also requested that they designate a city point of contact to engage with the Iowa DNR or Iowa Rural Water Association regarding Phase 2 planning, and whether source water protection should be identified as a community priority for 2026. I obviously think it should. I think water is very important. It's life. And there's no immediate fiscal impact identified. Technical assistance is available for Phase 2 planning. It's available at no cost through the state. And I did lay out all of this information. I provided it to the city administrator, and I emailed this agenda to Turi. I said, I'm sending you a proposed agenda item, which is the document I just showed you, for your review and consideration for forwarding to City Council. The proposed agenda language summarizes. So I wanted to talk about the city's recent annual approval of annual TCE testing, the importance of clear present, not present laboratory testing, current status of Phase 2, written confirmation that Phase 2 was not complete, which we already have, and then an explanation about available no-cost technical assistance through the DNR and Iowa Rural Water Association. I included the communications that I had with the DNR and the guidebook. I explained that the guidebook explains that water protection is voluntary but can reduce long-term treatment costs, decrease the likelihood of contamination events, and provide additional benefits such as reduced monitoring requirements and potential grant opportunities. So, although written primarily for water system operators, the guidebook is intended to be accessible to communities as a whole. And I did request that I be placed on the agenda so that we could talk about this. So this is that whole email thread. You can see here the attachments that I put on my request. Turi's initial response was, thank you for sending the proposed agenda item and accompanying materials. I've reviewed them, and the mayor is in agreement with placing sourcing water protection Phase 2 and TCE monitoring update on a city council agenda for council consideration. If you'd like to present in person to speak on the item, the available meeting dates would be February 3rd or February 17th. Let me know if either of those dates work. Thank you for your time and care you've put into assembling the background information for council's review. I was very excited about this response because I know that we butt heads quite a bit, and that some of the things that I do or say might rub people the wrong way, but I am not ill-intended. I really do want to see improvement, and that is my only goal. And I thought that we were turning a corner here, and I was very excited about that. Turi came back and told me that after further consideration, the same day, we went from January 29th at 11:33 a.m. Yep, here are the two dates. To January 29th, 3:48 p.m. So what happened in those 3 hours? I don't know. But the response I got back from Turi was, after further consideration, the mayor's decided to hold off on placing this item on the city agenda at this time. He would like additional time to conduct further research, and he is currently working with the Harrison County Emergency Management Agency on a hazard mitigation plan for the city of Missouri Valley. His preference is to allow the process to move forward and be completed before bringing this topic up to council, so it can be considered within the broader context of city's ongoing planning efforts. Once the hazards mitigation plan is further along and the mayor has had time to complete his review, this item can be revisited for future agenda consideration. I did respond back to Turi, and the main point that I was making is that my request regarding TCE is not a future planning issue. It's an immediate public health concern. See this right here. It's an immediate public health and monitoring concern. I appreciate the city's commitment to annual water testing. I'm asking that the scope and reporting of the testing be structured in a way that provides residents with meaningful information about potential long-term exposure. And I also provided her with an email from the DNR, so I'm attaching the email correspondence from the DNR to Matt Pitt, who's our county zoning individual in Harrison County. So as discussed by the DNR, even when these compounds test below regulatory limits, ongoing ingestion at any level presents a health concern, particularly with chronic exposure. This guidance reflects the reality that maximum contaminant levels do not eliminate risk, especially for long-term consumption and sensitive populations. So the correspondence also illustrates how the DNR approaches known or suspected contamination risks on a parcel by parcel basis. So something about Turi, our city administrator, is she has a reverse osmosis system at her home. So she purchased land, she signed the water statement that acknowledged the fact that she was aware that there was TCE on her property. The DNR gave additional context of what she had to do to dig the well and safety measures she had to put in. So somebody who is so extensively aware of TCE and would install a reverse osmosis system on their own property to protect their own health should be providing that same benefit to the city that they serve. She is paid by taxpayer funds. And so I know that she gets upset about this because she believes that the personal decisions she makes at her home should not be brought into these discussions. However, when you personally are so familiar with TCE and you have those water systems and you are representing the city, you owe it to us. There is an onus on you with the knowledge that you have to say, how do I protect the citizens? You're protecting yourself. You know, if that reverse osmosis system were to come off of your water system, you would not be drinking that water. So when I ask for you to do testing that gives the residents of the city a clear idea of what the contaminants are in our water, you should say, absolutely. It's not going to cost any more money for you to say to the lab, hey, let's reduce those levels from 5 MCL to 0.44. It's not going to hurt you. But I think the city would rather avoid this topic, and they'd rather be able to say, we tested the water at this level. It's fine. It's safe for you to drink. Because then they don't have to take any action. There are grants available. They should be writing grants to get a reverse osmosis system at the level of where our city water is, at our pump. That burden shouldn't be on the individual citizens. We are a low-income community. To add a $4,000 to $7,000 bill to say, hey, you've got to, if you want to take care of your water, you have to buy your own system. Or we do it at a city level, and we're already paying taxes. This is a conversation that came up. John Harrison came to the meeting, and he wanted to talk about the fact that I keep saying that it's free, it's free, it's free. However, his point was that maybe it's not always free. What if the DNR actually identifies situations that need income to be put in? Well, yeah, of course. Of course we would put money into fixing these issues. If the DNR working with the city determines that there are safety concerns, then absolutely we should be investing our money into giving clean water to the people. Water is life. And obviously there are budget restrictions. But what I'm always going to point back to is the poor financial decisions that the city has made that don't seem to bother them. I will point back to the fire hall. You had 2 opportunities for the citizens to vote yes to the expansion of a city hall, the fire department. They voted no both times. They put in an emergency bond for $1.9 million after they purchased an ambulance that did not fit in the fire hall. They then were able to say, oh, we have equipment that doesn't fit in our fire hall, so this is an emergency. They bypassed the public vote after the public vote voted that down twice. Okay, and now the taxpayers are on the hook for this $1.9 million bond. That's a problem. That's something we said no to, and the city said we're doing it anyways. Now, these same folks are moving out of where City Hall currently is, and they're moving into the Rand Center. Their explanation for that is, well, this is an old building, it's not great, it's falling apart. Yes, you knew that. You've known that. That's part of why the expansion should never have happened. You had contractors come in who said you should not expand at this facility. You did it anyway at a cost of $1.9 million. Now you're moving over to the RAND Center. Now you have a work bid out because you've decided that you want changes made to the RAND Center to accommodate new City Hall employees over there. One of them being they want a new bathroom so that they don't have to walk through and use the public bathroom that would potentially walk through an event going on. So that would be, to me, if we're saying, should we spend $1.9 million on a City Hall expansion at the fire hall that the citizens have voted down twice, or do we put money into clean water? Clean water is going to win every day, all day. And the city is not, I don't believe that they are on the same page. So I just want you to know, I am trying my best to get them to engage in this phase 2. When we get to a point where the city says, yeah, come and talk about it, and then they say, no, we're not going to let you talk about it, we're hitting a wall. And this is where I think that as a community, we are going to have to get more engaged. I, right now, cannot attend City Hall or City Council meetings because I have all of my clinicals have been 12-hour shifts Monday and Tuesday. I'm not getting home until 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night every Tuesday. That's coming to an end July 31st. After that, the intention for me is to be at every one of these meetings. It is to be speaking out about all of these issues and to push. So right now, my hands are kind of tied with my limitations on time. But what I do want you to know is you said to me in Q1, I want you to spend your time on water. The water is a big issue. This is what I want you to focus on. That is what I've been doing. I've been working with the DNR. I've been doing research. I've been trying to understand what we can do as a city to be better. And I've been proactive about trying to work with the city and make changes. The city does not want to engage with me. They don't want to make these changes right now. They are giving every excuse in the book as to why it's not going to happen right now. Water should be a priority right now. So as far as the water goes, that's the city situation. There's ongoing discussions about TCE specifically in these other areas, and realtor disclosures, property values, things going on in the courthouse, things of that nature. But specifically here in town, what I would like to see happen is DNR Phase 2 take place and be implemented, and the TCE testing needs to be done to show any level of TCE, regardless of that 5 MCL. And then I would like to see the city start applying for grants to get a reverse osmosis system at the source of our water. So that is the end of our water update. If you have any questions, let me know. Again, I'm going to provide link access to this. So thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. Next item we'll review is our open records request, so feel free to join on that one. And I thank you guys for taking the time to listen.